So,
Hey Ashton, how's it going?
I'll ask you this. I'll go over here first. What do you know about Christian? Give me your brief synopsis. Who do you think Christian is? Christian Weston Chandler.
Kristen Weston Chandler. To my knowledge, he was an internet personality, late 2000s, early 2010s. He sort of into the late 2010s, 2020s, but not as popular as the late 2000s, early 2010s. Known for a lot of things. Some of his artwork and comic strips are, depends if they're famous or infamous, depending on who you ask. He was autistic, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of affected some of his work sometimes. And that's just in summation a good description of Christian Weston Chandler, to my knowledge.
I'll ask you the same thing. What do you know prior to now of Christian Weston Chandler?
Well, Alf over here covered most of it, but that's sort of the beginning. But more recently, there's been a lot of developments. Like he or she is transgender, but that's under debate by a lot of the fan base, whether it's actually real or not. So he/she, they recently went to jail for incest with their senile mother,
Yeah.
which is pretty epic.
Yeah.
Epic in an ancient Greek sense.
Oh, and they also have declared that they are the Messiah.
That is true. That is true.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah.
So, Christian, as you know, as he's referred to on the internet, Chan revolving around is a Japanese suffix around someone of great attention. So that's why he's called Chris Chan. He's arguably the most documented person in history. We know everything.
A bit too much.
About him.
Way
Even
too
before his time on the internet. Because Chris uploads everything about his life on the internet. His high schooler homework. Christian is also known to be an open book. He's a terrible liar. So everything he says, we can figure out because we know he's lying or he just talks about all this stuff with no filter at all. And a part of that is because Chris's parents were very old when they had him. Barbara recently went through a divorce, and prior to that, she also had a son. They broke up, divorced, did their own thing. That's later. Barbara met Robert Chandler, and by then he was already 50 years old, and Barbara was 40. So
His parents were old. I didn't know they were that old.
they were old when they had him, and that's possibly why he has autism, such a severe form of autism, because there's a staggering correlation. Older couples having children and autism. So, Chris's parents are older, and right then, during the 90s and 2000s, that was the Wild West. That was the true untamed nature of the internet. And Chris's parents, they're not going to understand it. And Chris grew up with it. So, Chris grew up in an environment that it reinforced the whole open book, open-ended thing, because that was just internet culture back then. If you have a thought on the internet, have a thought, you're gonna put it on the internet.
Yeah.
Additionally, Chris grew up watching TV. He was raised by TV. But you know this because of his mannerisms. He's heavily influenced by Family Guy. A lot of his phrases and behaviors are direct mimics of Family Guy. One of the most signature quirk of his is that he does these vlogs where he would start with Captain's log, start date 12/02/2003. and that's a reference to Star Trek, but it's highly possible that Chris learned that from Family Guy, which is a reference to Star Trek. So, as an example of like how he was raised on television his entire life. Before the internet, Chris always had this fixation of being the TV man, the like ideal, home underdog man. During high school, he had this group, basically a harem of women that he hung out with, called his gal pals.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
I'm being dead serious. He's a group of women that were paid by Barbara to hang out with Chris. We learned about this way later, in like 2016, that like Barbara or Robert paid the like 5 women high schoolers like, hey, hang out with Chris to like make him seem more sociable, which is another our discussion on social psychology and the idea of social acceptance and how do we identify within a group. Chris, his whole group with a facade, it was just like an allowance given to other people. And so eventually they all graduated, his gal pals went off to do other things. Now Chris is in college, and that was like the true, like, I would argue the true, like, Chris in his purest form, because he would do this thing. He desperately wanted a girlfriend. That was like his end goal. He wanted a girlfriend, his quote unquote boyfriend-free girl, and he would write that on a poster board and be like, I want a boyfriend-free girl, like 18 to like 30 or whatever, under 200 pounds.
Well, at least he's accepting on age.
And sat out in like the quad or like the courtyard on campus and be like, you want a boyfriend free? Yeah, are you a boyfriend free girl? And later on, the supervisors or administrators caught on to this, destroyed it, like, yeah, get out of here. And
Was he like harassing women?
you could argue that. I mean, we get onto that later, because he would eventually migrate to the like mall out in Ruckersville, Virginia, and he would like stalk cashiers essentially, or store clerks, and I mean, like watching the corner, like going up to them and like, are you a boyfriend-free girl? And keep in mind, Chris views the world in a very animated point of view. That leads into his comic, the thing that basically made him famous, his comic, where he merged the famous Sega character Sonic and the Nintendo character, Pokemon character, Pikachu, and merged them together to make Sonic Chu. And he made a valiant effort to market it to Sega, as a original character.
Man,
So
I'm
much-
trying to keep a straight face through this, but it is so hard when you start talking about Sonic Chu.
I've been smiling this whole time.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's 20 years worth of this stuff.
Yeah.
And he stood outside like this building that he was told was the headquarters of Sega for like 2 days out in the rain to show you how like Chris believes everything. Everything.
So it wasn't actually the Sega.
No, it was just some random building that people told him that it was.
It's like people online.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you can't talk about Chris without talking about his trolls. As he called it, the trolls. His cyberbullies. And there's legacies, there are ages or sagas of incidences of Christianity. There are two big ones
Mhm.
called the Blue Spike incident and the Liquid Chris incident.
I know about some of these.
This Blue Spike was a 13-year-old kid that posed, that acted the role as both the troll and his boyfriend figure, his sweetheart, as Chris called Julie. Julie's the most infamous sweetheart. Chris has a long history of being catfish. Julie's the most infamous one because it ran for the longest time, and it escalated to the point where basically Blue Spike, this 13-year-old kid, was basically sexually harassing Chris by like making him do all these weird stuff. And the weird thing is, he's 13 years old, and we can't punish him because one, we don't know who he is, and it's a minor, and Chris is doing the lucrative part, the more lighthearted one is Liquid Chris. So this guy, Liquid Chris, Chris was by this point around 2010, 2009 to 2011.
How old is he at this point? Like 30?
He's roughly like 25 at this point. Maybe late 20s, because he turned 40. Chris became 40 around 2018 or so. So during this time, Liquid Chris, he was like this parody of Chris because he was already famous. He would just make these like parody videos of Christian. And the trolls caught onto this, be like, and sent it the videos to Chris saying that this guy is stealing your identity. And that's how he got, the guy doing the parody got the title Liquid Chris in reference to Metal Gear Solid, the liquid snake of the Christian saga.
Metal Gear Solid's got a convoluted plot already.
Yeah, so that's why during this period, actual Chris was referred to as Solid Chris in reference to Solid Snake. And so that ran on for about a year, and it escalated to the point where Liquid Chris challenged Solid Chris to a music like a music contest or duel, saying that whoever sings the best cover is dubbed the true Chris.
And what song was it covering?
It was a lot. One of them was like by Madonna for sure. Solid Chris did like a Parappa Rap cover. It was a lot.
I know about the Parappa Rapper one.
Yeah.
It's such like he knows he's the real Chris. Like, why does he?
Because he believes everything he's told on the internet. The power of belief is so strong with Chris. Part of it is his autism. Autism makes it difficult to understand social cues, right, and understand others' behaviors, and just ability to evoke your own emotions. That's part of the reason. The other part of the reason is that he believes that everything on the internet is true, and everyone that likes him wants to be with him, when in reality, everyone, and he is the true underdog in a sense that everyone is against him. By this point, Barbara lost her job and was just lounging around at her house. Robert was retired and was getting some Social Security checks here and there, and that was basically their entire income. Chris only had one job in his entire life, and it lasted for about 2 weeks. It was at Wendy's, and he was fired for like harassing this kid doing a Donald Duck impression. There's probably
Specific incident.
there's probably a lot more to that story, but that's what we're given, and that's all we can find out.
It's not as detailed as other facets of his life.
Yeah. And Yeah. It went on for a year. Liquid Chris finally said, "I'm done," and he just vanished. And so Chris was dubbed Real Chris because through sheer attrition. So that's something. It didn't end up with him getting extorted $6,000 later in his life, like this group called the Idea Guys, or him like smashing his PlayStation in belief that he will get $9,000, or him driving out to the middle of Wisconsin, I believe, maybe it was Michigan, for a fake girlfriend, and in this quote unquote hostage situation. There's a lot, but the core of it is that Chris, in Chris's story, the Chris Chan saga, there are no good guys. There's no quote unquote good guys. A lot of it could be argued, could be attributed to Chris. He does this stuff to himself because he just doesn't learn. He doesn't learn from his mistakes at all, right?
Mhm.
His parents don't make any attempt to stop anything. Or there was one incident where Robert did cut down the internet, but that didn't last very long. And
Well, they didn't like know too much about what was going on with Chris.
they knew to an extent, not everything. By what I mean by that is that like Chris leaks his phone number all the time, and so of course when people get their phone number, they're gonna call that number and tell Chris's parents of what's happening, and so
Or potentially what they are lying and say is happening when it's not happening. Did
Yeah.
that ever happen?
Yeah, but don't they like not really understand what the internet is? Don't they like?
that's kind of true
I mean,
too.
they're already 50 when it happened as a kid in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a legacy. Chris made his own case study inadvertently by himself. All we really need to do is get like cognitive, behavioral, maybe social psychologists to really dig deep through all this stuff. 20, approaching 30-year legacy that's not going to end. And we're going to have to wait and see what happens when Chris gets indicted and or gets out of jail. So,
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, some proper psychological evaluation of what's going on with Chris Chen. Because, I mean, I don't really use too much internet too often. At least not as niche a topic as Chris Chen. But for as niche as it is, it's also mainstream enough that someone who's on the internet fairly regularly will at least know in some regard as to who Chris Chen is and what they did. So I would really find it interesting to see an actual academic study being done.
So is this what? Did this happen on like multiple websites? Did it change over time? What websites was this on?
well, with a lot of things on the internet, it all started with 4chan. 4chan is a lightly moderated anonymous messaging board that contributes a lot to pop culture. A lot of people not knowing about that, with its nature of being completely anonymous. Chris got attention from that, and soon enough that people realized that there's so much information here that we can make a whole Wikipedia page about this. And it happened. It was called the Quickie, the Chris Chan Wikipedia. Unfortunately, that got shut down for like copyright reasons. It was very odd. So eventually, all the Chris Chan history moved over to this messaging board, similar to 4chan, called Kiwi Farms, and that's where most of Christery, as it's called.
The cool kids.
But because of the recent incident, Isabella Isabella Jank is trying to get Kiwi Farms to get shut down. Isabella Jank is the woman that pressured Chris to having incest with her mom. So there's that.
When did they transition again? Do you remember what year that was?
That would have been roughly 2015 in that period. 2015, 2016 in that era.
Hmm.
Have you been following this like for a while, or have you just like caught up on something?
I've known about Chris for well over 10 years. Basically my introduction when I started using the internet habitually. So 10 years ago, would have been roughly 2011. It was basically this video of Chris playing "I Need a Hero" on his on Guitar Hero guitar, cover of it, because Chris doesn't know how to play guitar, and it's likely that I'm pretty sure he made that video for another catfish, his sweetheart. So that video got somewhat popular, and it's pretty funny.
Was he playing Guitar Hero with it, or did he just have the guitar?
So what Chris does is he plays the song in the background
Mm-hmm.
and makes his own music video of him playing his little Guitar Hero guitar.
I'm curious.
I mean, dead serious. He tries to sing the lyrics, but it's so incoherent and low quality that it just doesn't come out right. How he envisioned it, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to be fair, like a lot of covers of songs on the internet from that time period were kind of all like that, regardless of who it was. So I guess it can't be too harsh on them for that.
Yeah, back then there was a lot of white girls singing Eminem songs.
Yeah. Or a lot of white guys making a video game or comic book, anime, Lego,
Yeah, hell
toy,
yeah.
movie video
Anime
covers.
movies, those were the thing back in the early 2010s.
Yeah. There were a lot of Lego stop motion stuff back then too. Did Chris ever do any of those?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
Well, specifically Legos or all sorts of stop motion media?
All sorts. Well, the most famous one is his PSA against Asperger's, because Chris hates people with Asperger's because he believes that they're taking the attention away from people with autism, and so he made this little video, submission videos with like his Transformers and My Little Pony dolls about about people with Asperger's and how they're a danger to society.
What kind of phobia do you think that'd be called? Like there's
Aspergerphobia?
xenophobia, homophobia. What do you call it when you're
It's ableist.
prejudiced against someone?
Ableist.
Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I mean
Yeah, that's like
specifically
in general. I feel like you can just
for a
put.
mental disease.
I feel like you can just put a phobia or like ist after something. Just
yeah, ableist.
Asperger phobia or something.
I don't know, Chris could probably come up with a good name for it.
Don't some people think he's like secretly gay?
Well,
Well, I guess now that he transitioned to a girl, or they transitioned to a girl,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be.
Christine, right?
Chris.
But he had incest with his mom. So why?
Exactly. It's a lot. Well, my opinions are pretty controversial, so I'm not going to say those here. But
Isn't it speculated by a lot of the community that their transition wasn't really done because they actually wanted to transition, but more just they thought it would be a good attempt to essentially just get laid?
essentially, yeah. Because Chris has kind of had a weird history with cross-dressing. There's these pictures leaked of Chris dressing up in his mom's underwear. And later in his life, and kind of like around when he was like 25 or so, he started going to like clubs to get laid because he wants a girlfriend, like desperately. And that didn't go well. So eventually he like started get into watching these videos about a subliminal uterus manifestation.
What?
I'm not making this up.
Who was he watching? Alpha M or something?
Maybe. But like that basically, when he started like talking about that jump started him like eventually transitioning. And eventually, sure enough, when they transitioned, started going to clubs again, and like started harassing women, and people were like, what are you doing? And then,
And then you have to explain what.
yeah.
What was it called? Subliminal uterus
It's subliminal uterus manifestation.
manifestation.
It's a thing that Chris reportedly watched and inspired. So
Jeez. Man, if that was the old west of the internet, that's some snake oil right there. What were you saying, Pete?
Do you know who Daniel Larson is? He's like very similar to Christian.
Very similar.
is that the Pamper Chew guy? Oh well, yeah. Well, there are offshoots of Christian, of people that have similar behaviors and documented. And one of them is called Pamper Chew. It's really gross. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah. It's already been about 30 minutes now. I don't think we need to get into the offshoots of Christian. I mean, there's already, what, 30, 40 years of history now for Christian?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, his docu-series has like 40 episodes or something, right?
It's on hiatus right now. It's on part 59 because of the recent incident. And yeah,
Who created that again? I know it's on YouTube.
it's this guy named Gino Samuel. It's an amazing documentary, mainly because it's non-biased. It's just reciting the events that happened. It's a 59 part. It has like 3 years left to get up to modern time. It's on part 59. It's on hiatus right now, but after this, it gets into like the true like malice of recent Chris history. Mainly the Idea Guys and of course Isabella Jake. The Idea Guys were these group of trolls that like reinforced this idea that if Chris believes enough, all of his OCs, original characters, all these characters he imagined will come true in this dimensional merge. They just have to give Chris, all he has to do is give them money. And eventually they extorted like $6,000 for it.
Did they ever get charged with anything? Or?
So there was
They
an
still just
attempt.
won?
There was an attempt by Kiwi Farms. They got note of this. They're like, "What are you? You're what? You're extorting how much money from Chris?" And so the Kiwi Farms eventually reported the Idea Guys to the FBI, and that eventually what stopped them.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So currently, we're on the prison arc and the dimensional merge saga of today's Chris Strait.
I'm sure. I think that would require maybe a case study of its own.
Yeah.
There's already enough stuff to deal with beforehand. Well, I think that was a good little summary you gave us of Christian so far.
Yeah. All right. I'm ending it here.
Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the podcast. It's over.